Well, as I'm sure you'll agree, there is a lot to talk about. Well, joining us tonight from the US, Jason Greenblatt is the former US envoy to the Middle East and the author of In the Path of Abraham. Good evening to you.
Good evening. Great to be here with you.
Great to have you. And in Manama, Bahrain tonight, geopolitical commentator and journalist Abdullah Al-Junaid. Great to have you as well, Abdullah. And I'll start with you, if I may. I mean, Israeli politicians here clearly caught off guard by what happened on Friday. They've descended into a blame game. Is this a setback for Israel? Is this a setback for the Abraham Accords?
Good evening, Laura, and to Ambassador Platt. Thank you for having me again. I don't think it's... let's say it's a setback. It is a step forward where the region is playing or managing its own affairs. If Washington had been given the chance, and unfortunately, from the prospect of the United States, it's lacking when it's come to long-term, let's say, strategies. And that's why its foreign policies has failed. It's not my statement. You go back to the CENTCOM, director, and also Mali, who is managing or looking after the reviving the nuclear talks. The United States had failed in containing Iran, and at the present time, it's not Saudi. But what we need to do. Seriously, is look at the part played by China and not just Saudi.
Okay, Abdullah. And Jason, last time I spoke to you, you were actually in Riyadh, and you were very enthusiastic about the prospect for the Abraham Accords, and you told me that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was the right person to get Saudi Arabia to sign on. What happened? What went wrong?
Well, I did say that, but I also said that it's going to take quite a while for Saudi Arabia to get its arms around the Abraham Accords, and the Abraham Accords is not quite the priority for Saudi Arabia that everybody thinks that it is, and I still think that's true. First of all, as much as I'm reluctant to say it, I do congratulate China for helping to broker these accords. I agree with Abdullah that it's not a setback for the Abraham Accords, but we have to remember that Israel is not the center of the universe. It may be an important power. It's certainly a country that I support, that the United States supports, but this is very much about the region. It's very much about Saudi Arabia. And if I were advising MBS, the Crown Prince, I would have told him to do what he did. If he could take tension out of the room by restoring diplomatic relations with Iran while keeping a close eye on what Iran is doing, I think it was a smart move on his part, given his ambitious plans that he's quite effectively proceeding with.
All right, but as you both well know, building a security alliance against Iran was a large part of the Abraham Accords, and it is what brought a lot of the countries in the region together. Saudi Arabia appears to have kind of cut out the middleman here. Why does it still need Israel if it's going to have its own relationship with Iran? Abdullah?
I don't think it should be addressed in such a manner. What we need to do is realize exactly what the current responsibilities of Saudi regionally and internationally. If we're going to talk about, let's say, issues related to security per se, the United States didn't play, let's say, understandingly, the threat to the Saudi national security by prolonging or, let's say, addressing what the Houthis represent in terms of a proxy. It did, emphasize on the need to, recognize Hezbollah as a terrorist organization. And they failed to apply the same to al-Houthi. So what is expected of Saudi Arabia? To just continue in policies toward Yemen, or contain the whole situation by containing Iran. And this is exactly what it was done. We are not cutting the middleman. Israel is a potential ally. They are part of the CENTCOM, and the Saudis are there, and the rest of the region country. But as Ambassador Platt have said, Israel need to recognize itself being part of a region. a regional partner and need to readdress issues from the strategic threats and also containment.
Jason Greenblatt, the United States under the Biden administration has been an unstable ally for Saudi Arabia. Is that part of the problem?
Yes, indeed. And I agree with everything Abdullah said. From the beginning, President Biden alienated Saudi Arabia. He treated the crown prince disrespectfully. He treated Saudi Arabia as a vassal state, as if we can control them. And I think that Saudi Arabia, which is a powerful country in its own, has realized that it can't sit around and wait for the United States to treat it the way it needs to be treated in order for Saudi Arabia to achieve its goals. And it did what it needed to do. And I think that the United States loses a tremendous amount by pivoting away from the region, in particular the kingdom. And I think that Israel should pay close attention to what's going on because, as Abdullah said, it can play an important role here. It should play an important role as part of the region. So I think the United States ought to get its act together again, become a very reliable ally and friend to the region, and not doing so is really at the United States' peril.
All right, Jason Greenblatt, Abdullah Al-Junaid, stay with us. We'll be back for more discussions about that deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia after the break, and we'll look in more detail at what it means for Tehran. Do stay with us.
It's a living, breathing organism that pulsates through millennia. Touch it, listen to it, smell it, taste it. Experience the Holy Land like never before. Holy Land Uncovered, every Sunday, only on i24 News.
Strictly Security, your weekly look into security, intelligence, and strategic affairs. Our team brings the latest on the major international conflicts, analysis of the major security issues right here in the Middle East and around the globe. Saturdays, only on i24 News.
Hey, it's you again. Ready? Let's go. One show, a whole lot of perspectives.
He is part of the problem.
You want to talk about deplatforming?
People are losing their lives.
Not just what happened, but why does it matter?
I'd like to finish my point.
You're the one stretching terms here.
You could be a fantastic CNN reporter.
Join us every night, 8 p.m. Eastern on Global Eye. The global conversation starts here.
We're on the inside of political and religious passions in Jerusalem, breaking down the financial trends shaping the global economy, giving you key context, not just headlines, with the stories from Israel that touch the U.S. and those across the region with impact far beyond its borders. Catch the rundown where the Middle East meets the world.
Welcome back. We're discussing Friday's diplomatic bombshell in the Middle East, a China brokered agreement between Iran and Saudi Arabia that goes a long way to end Tehran's diplomatic isolation. And it also raises questions about the United States' influence in the Middle East. Joining us tonight in the US, Jason Greenblatt is the former US envoy to the Middle East and the author of In the Path of Abraham. He helped to broker the Abraham Accords back in 2020. And in Manama, Bahrain, geopolitical commentator and journalist Abdullah Al-Junaid. And thanks for staying with us. So let's look ahead then, if we could, to where this deal might take the region. If you look, Abdullah, at some of the Saudi media today, there's a lot of op-eds saying that the next 2 months will be really important for Riyadh. They will be really monitoring what the Iranians do. Do you think that Iran will be playing its cards very carefully for the next few weeks?
Again, Laura, what we need to stay focused on, it's not the deal. It's the commitment that Iran made to the guarantor, China. It's not Saudi here. It's not the region. For us, what we need to keep in mind, this is the biggest foreign policy step taken by China toward this region. Okay? And hopefully, if it's work out, we're going to see its fruit or impact in a lot of arenas, and definitely the security and the region, and also we may see a real way out for the Syrian crisis. So here, and I'm sure Ambassador Platt will understand when I say for China, it's a matter of faith. So it is up on the Iranian not to misbehave and stay committed to what they have agreed or, signed on.
All right, Jason Greenblatt, are we missing the positives here? Could this potentially bring an end to the long-running conflicts in Yemen, in Iraq, and even in Syria?
Yes, it could, and I think China could play an important role. I wish the United States was playing that role, either itself or alongside of China. Here, too, I agree with Abdullah. I think that China has a lot of leverage over Iran, and Iran has to behave. And if it behaves properly, not only hopefully will it do the right thing with respect to Saudi Arabia and the rest of the GCC area, but beyond that, and maybe we could start to see progress in the arenas where Iran has played a very malign influence.
So you both believe then that China could play a positive role in the region, Jason?
I do. I wish the United States would get its act together and join China in playing a positive role. We may have strategic competition with China, even stronger than that these days. But China sees the Middle East as the next competitive landscape, and it has done unfortunately for the United States, a remarkable job putting itself there. It's important to Saudi Arabia. It's important to Iran, and they're playing a role that could help the region, and of course could help China, which I'm sure is of paramount importance to China.
Abdullah, is China a better peacemaker than the Americans because it doesn't have the same history? It hasn't had boots on the ground in this part of the world?
Probably that's the best thing for all of us. Okay? China policies or foreign policies totally tooled differently than the European or the American or the Israelis. What we would like to encourage everybody is to, first of all, to set up, priorities. At the present time, restabilizing the region is the highest priority. What did the United States do? Did it work with its, traditional allies like GCC? No. Who played the most major part after the Arab Spring to restabilize the region? It was us, the GCC, led by Saudi Arabia and UAE. So the United States and also Israel need to rethink, retool its rapprochement. We need to work. Syria, Iraq are a priority. If we can bring, China to play a bigger role within this domain, it's going to be fantastic for a win-win situation for all.
At the same time, though, Jason Greenblatt, Israel's enemies, Hamas, Hezbollah, destabilizing forces in the region, are very much welcoming this deal. What are we to read into that?
Well, they are welcoming it. I'm not surprised because it puts Iran in a good seat. And we have to hope that China takes notice of that and puts pressure on Iran not to allow further destabilization. Destabilization in Israel, of course, is equally bad for the region. So hopefully things calm down region-wide. We have to take a wait-and-see approach, and we certainly need to keep our eye on the ball with respect to Iran, both the U.S. and, of course, Israel. I would caution Israelis, though, not to listen to the political statements, one side blaming the other. This is not about Israel. This is about China. This is about Saudi Arabia. Abdullah mentioned the UAE. The UAE has done a remarkable job keeping Israel close, trade with Israel, good relationships with Israel, but at the same time, still recognizing that it has to conduct business with Iran. It has to have diplomatic relations with Iran. And I think Saudi Arabia can do the same thing. But the Iran negative influence on the on the Houthis, of course, but on Hamas and Hezbollah, I hope will be curbed by China.
All right, well, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed to you both, Jason Greenblatt and Abdullah Al-Junaid. A pleasure to talk to you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Awesome.